When God is about to give you something big, it's never in the way you expect. The path to greatness is often paved with struggles, challenges, and moments of profound uncertainty. You see, in life, there are no shortcuts to success, and there are no easy paths to the dreams you hold in your heart. But when God is preparing to bless you, He doesn't just hand it to you. Instead, He transforms you into the person who can handle the weight of that blessing. And this transformation is often uncomfortable. You will begin to feel like you're being stretched beyond your limits. The things you once held dear might start slipping away. Old patterns will break, relationships will shift, and your world may begin to feel disorienting. But understand this, it is precisely in these moments of discomfort that God is working in you, refining you, and preparing you for what's ahead. When God is about to give you something big, He doesn't just drop it into your lap. No, He prepares you for it. And often, that preparation looks like a season of pruning, of stripping away what's unnecessary in your life so that you can carry the weight of the blessings He's about to pour into your hands. You may not understand it at the time, but the pain, the struggle, the loss, it's all part of the process. Just as a tree needs to be pruned to bear more fruit, you need to go through a process of personal refinement to handle the greatness that is on the way. During this season, you will experience tests of patience, faith, and endurance. You will feel discouraged at times, wondering if the promise of something better is ever going to come to pass. But remember this, God doesn't test you to break you. He tests you to build you. He allows you to go through these challenges because He knows you are capable of overcoming them. He believes in you even when you don't believe in yourself. This period of waiting, of feeling like you're stuck, is not wasted time. God is teaching you the virtues of patience, trust, and reliance on Him. If you think about the greatest stories of success, whether in the Bible or in modern times, you will see a pattern. They are always preceded by a season of waiting, of preparation, and often of hardship. David, before he became king, spent years in the wilderness, being chased by Saul, facing rejection, and yet he was being shaped into a leader who would carry the nation to victory. Joseph was sold into slavery, imprisoned, and forgotten. But all of these challenges were shaping him into the second in command of Egypt. The greatest leaders were not made in times of comfort. They were forged in the fire of adversity. When God is about to give you something big, He will remove certain things and people from your life. You might wonder why certain doors are closing or why opportunities seem to be slipping through your fingers. But in those moments, you must trust that God knows what's best for you. He is removing the distractions, the people who might weigh you down, and the circumstances that could prevent you from walking into the fullness of your destiny. You may feel lonely. You may feel abandoned. But in that solitude, God is preparing you to step into a future that requires your full attention, your full heart, and your full trust. Another sign that God is about to give you something big is when you begin to feel a stirring in your spirit, a desire for something more. This stirring might come as a longing for something greater, something beyond your current circumstances. It's that deep, unshakable knowing that you're meant for more than what you're experiencing right now. And even though you might not know what that more is, you can feel it. You sense the shift. It's like standing on the edge of a new chapter in your life where everything is about to change. That stirring, that discomfort is a sign that God is preparing your heart for His plan. You will also notice that when God is about to give you something big, the things that once satisfied you will no longer have the same impact. What once brought you peace may now feel empty. The things you thought you wanted may begin to lose their appeal because God is preparing you for something that will satisfy your soul in a way nothing else ever could. He's shifting your desires to align with His will for your life. The things that once felt important will fade into the background, and the things that really matter, purpose, passion, calling, will come into sharp focus. In these moments, it's important to hold on to your faith, even when you can't see the outcome. God is a God of timing, and His timing is always perfect. What you may not realize in the moment is that the very struggles you face are preparing you for a greater purpose. They are the training ground for the person you must become in order to handle the greatness He's about to give you. If you can endure this season with patience and trust, you will emerge stronger, wiser, and ready for the blessing that is on the other side. Lastly, when God is about to give you something big, He will give you the strength and wisdom you need. but he will also challenge you to act. Faith without works is dead, and God will require you to take steps forward even when it seems like nothing is happening. This is where your obedience comes in. Step out in faith, even if you don't have all the answers, even if the path ahead is unclear. God will not bless your hesitation, but he will bless your obedience. He honors those who trust in his timing and take action in alignment with his will. So when you are facing difficulty, uncertainty, and discomfort, don't be disheartened. These are signs that God is about to give you something big. Embrace the preparation, trust in the process, and walk boldly into the future that he is preparing for you. His blessings are coming, and when they do, you will be ready to carry them with grace, wisdom, and strength. When God is preparing to bless you with something significant, the journey often begins with a series of challenges, struggles, and hardships. This is not by accident. In fact, it's a crucial part of his divine plan. The process of receiving something big is never smooth or free from difficulty. It's important to understand that during these moments of struggle, God isn't trying to break you down, but rather to build you up in ways that are necessary for the greatness that's ahead. Struggles and discomforts are not signs of divine abandonment. Instead, they are signs of divine preparation, much like an athlete who must endure rigorous training before stepping onto the field, or an artist who spends countless hours honing their craft before showcasing their work. We must be refined through trials before we can truly handle the blessings that God has set before us. These trials, whether they come in the form of personal loss, financial difficulty, relational strife, or personal doubt, are not meant to defeat us. They are meant to shape us into the person we need to become in order to walk in the fullness of God's plan. Just as gold is refined in fire, your character, your strength, and your faith are refined in the fires of life's trials. You may feel the heat of the challenges, and at times it may seem unbearable. But it is in those moments when everything seems impossible that God is molding you into someone who can not only endure, but thrive in the greatness he's preparing for you. The discomfort you feel today is a reflection of the greatness that is just around the corner. Think of it as the pressure that forms diamonds. When you feel like you can't go on, when the weight of the world seems too much to bear, remember this: you are being prepared for something far beyond what you can see right now. The struggles are not random, they are purposeful. They are helping you develop resilience, patience, and perseverance. These are all qualities that you will need when the blessings begin to flow into your life. Many times we want to avoid hardship. We pray for ease, for the smooth road, and for our dreams to come true without the struggle. But if we were to receive everything we want without the preparation, we wouldn't be ready for it. The blessings God has for you require a person who can handle them, and that person is forged through challenges. Without going through the refining process, you wouldn't have the character to sustain the gift. We often look at the end result, the success, the blessings, but forget that those things come with a price. And that price is not measured in money, but in faith, character, and the willingness to endure when things get tough. Moreover, these trials don't just test our strength, they build our faith. When we face challenges that seem insurmountable, it forces us to rely not on our own abilities, but on God's strength and guidance. In the middle of struggle, we learn to trust him more deeply, to lean on him when we can't stand on our own. This trust is what prepares us to steward the blessings that he will eventually give us. Without trust, we would squander what he gives, but through the struggles, he teaches us to rely on him fully, knowing that he is the source of our strength and provision. In every challenge, God is refining you for something bigger. The moment you are in right now, no matter how hard it may seem, is a stepping stone to something great. The discomfort is not a sign that you are failing. It is a sign that God is building you up. When the blessing finally comes, when the doors open, when the promise is fulfilled, you will be equipped to carry it, to manage it, and to honor God with it in ways you never could have before. So, do not despise the struggle. Do not curse the discomfort. Embrace it, because in the end, you will see that it was all part of the process that has led you to a place where you are more prepared, more capable, and more blessed than you ever imagined. As God prepares to bless you with something extraordinary, he often begins by pruning your life, removing things, people, and situations that no longer align with the purpose he has set before you. You may find that during certain seasons you experience unexpected losses, relationships may fade away, or opportunities you once thought were vital may come to an abrupt end. At first, it can be disheartening, It can feel like you're being abandoned or that you're losing everything. But what if I told you that these changes are not signs of rejection, but rather signs of God's greater plan unfolding? Pruning is a natural and necessary process for growth. Think about a gardener tending to a vine or tree. In order for it to grow stronger, produce more fruit, and flourish, the gardener must carefully cut away the dead or overgrown branches. This doesn't mean the plant is being harmed, it's being prepared for greater fruitfulness. Similarly, God prunes your life to make you stronger and to make room for new growth. The things and people that were once in your life may no longer be able to go with you on the journey to the next level of your destiny. God allows certain things to be removed so that you can receive the new blessings He has in store for you. It's important to recognize that these losses, though painful, are not the end of your story. Instead, they are part of God's strategic plan to make you ready for what's to come. You see, God knows the future in ways we cannot. He sees the opportunities, the challenges, and the people who are destined to be a part of your journey in the next season of your life. Some relationships or situations may have served their purpose, but they are not meant to follow you into the next chapter of your life. As painful as it is, sometimes God has to cut away the things that are holding you back from stepping into your divine purpose. This process isn't about rejection, it's about elevation. Think of the things in your life as baggage. If you're carrying too much weight, you can't move freely, and you certainly can't run your race at the pace you're meant to. Pruning and the removal of distractions are a way for God to lighten your load and make you more focused. It's about clearing your path so that you can move forward with clarity and purpose. The people or circumstances that were once part of your life may no longer serve the vision God has for you. If you are surrounded by the wrong people or trapped in the wrong situations, you can't step into your God-given purpose fully. When God removes something or someone from your life, it's a sign that He is making room for something better. It may be difficult to understand this at first, especially when it feels like you're being left with less than what you had before, but trust that God knows exactly what you need. The relationships, opportunities, or things He's removing were never meant to be permanent fixtures in your life. He has something better for you on the horizon, but first you have to make space for it. Sometimes we hold on to things or people because we fear what's on the other side of letting go. We don't want to face the unknown. But remember, God will never remove something from your life without replacing it with something better. It might not be immediately obvious and it might require time, but the blessings that come after the pruning process are worth the wait. You will discover that what you thought was a loss was actually a divine arrangement, a necessary shift to align you with the greater plan God has for you. God is not in the business of taking things from us just to leave us empty. His plan is always to give us more than we can ask for or imagine. But first, He must remove the excess, the distractions, the dead weight, so that we can fully embrace what He has for us. So, when you find that God is pruning your life, remember, it's a sign that He's preparing you for something greater. It's not about loss, it's about making space for what's coming next. In these seasons of change, let go with trust and faith. Trust that every loss is a gain, every removal is a divine rearrangement. God's purpose for you is far too important for you to stay surrounded by anything that might hinder your growth. Trust in His plan and know that He is creating room in your life for something extraordinary. There will be times in life when the road ahead seems uncertain, when the path you thought you were walking suddenly becomes unclear and the future appears shrouded in fog. In those moments, it's easy to feel lost, confused, or even discouraged. You may find yourself questioning whether you're on the right track or if you're going to make it through the challenges that lie ahead. But I want to remind you of something deeply important. When the path ahead seems unclear, it's essential to place your faith in God's perfect time. You see, God's plan for your life is far bigger, far greater than what you can currently see. It's easy to become consumed by the immediate difficulties, the obstacles, and the uncertainties in front of you. But those are the very things God is using to guide you toward the greater purpose He has designed for you. In the midst of confusion, God's timing is always perfect. He doesn't make mistakes. He doesn't rush. He doesn't falter. His plan is not only precise, but it's also perfectly tailored to your life and to His divine purpose for you. Trusting in God's timing isn't always easy. We live in a world that values instant results, immediate gratification, and quick fixes. When we want something, we want it now. We don't like waiting, and the longer the wait, the more difficult it can be to maintain our faith. But God's timing doesn't work on our schedule. His ways are not our ways, and His thoughts are not our thoughts. There are moments when it feels like everything is moving slowly and nothing seems to be happening. But I can assure you, God is never idle. He is working even when you don't see it. He is preparing the circumstances, aligning the right people, and setting everything in place for the perfect moment to unfold. The Bible teaches us that God makes everything beautiful in its time. He is the master planner, and He knows the exact moment when things should fall into place. His timing is not random, it's intentional. Think of the story of Joseph in the Bible. He was sold into slavery by his own brothers, falsely accused and thrown into prison. For years, Joseph endured hardship and uncertainty. Yet, through all of it, God's hand was upon him. When the time was right, God elevated him to a position of power, using him to save many lives, including the very brothers who had betrayed him. If Joseph had been elevated sooner, he would not have been prepared to handle the greatness that was coming. God's perfect timing allowed Joseph to be molded, refined, and equipped for the purpose he was called to. Just like Joseph, you may feel like your journey is filled with setbacks, confusion, and times of waiting. You might wonder why things aren't happening faster or why doors seem to be closing when all you want is to move forward. But remember, God's delay is not His denial. He's working behind the scenes, preparing you and refining you. Every moment of waiting is part of His plan to develop your faith, your character, and your strength. The waiting isn't wasted. It's in the waiting that you learn to trust, to depend on Him, and to grow into the person you need to be to step into the blessings He has prepared for you. Sometimes it's not just about waiting for God's timing to act on your behalf. It's also about aligning your heart with His timing. Faith is not just about believing in God's power. It's about believing in His timing. It's about understanding that He sees the full picture while you see only a small part. Trusting in God's timing means surrendering your own understanding and trusting that He knows what's best for you. It means having faith that He is never late, never early, but always right on time. I know that it can be difficult to trust when the future is uncertain, but I encourage you today, lean into God's timing. Let go of the need to control every detail. Surrender your fears, your doubts, and your impatience to Him, and allow Him to lead you. He will guide you through the difficulties, and when the time is right, He will open doors that no man can shut. You may not understand it now, but when you look back, you will see that everything happened exactly as it should have, and you will be grateful for every moment of waiting. God is faithful. His timing is perfect. Trust Him to lead you exactly where you need to go. Know that He is preparing you for something beyond what you can imagine, and He will guide you to His purpose step by step at just the right time. In the end, you will realize that His timing was the very thing that made all the difference in your life. There comes a point in every believer's life when they begin to feel a stirring deep within their soul, a longing for something more, something greater than the life they're currently living. This desire isn't born from dissatisfaction with where you are. It's the quiet whisper of God's Spirit inside of you, urging you to step into the fullness of the purpose He has set before you. It's the spark that begins a transformation. This stirring is a sign that God is moving within you, preparing you for something much bigger than you've ever imagined. At first, this desire might feel uncomfortable. It may even feel like a yearning you can't quite explain. You might find yourself restless, not content with the routine or the life you've grown accustomed to. It's as though there's a quiet, persistent voice within you saying, there's more for you than this. You were made for greater things. This is not a desire for earthly wealth, status, or recognition. It's a deeper longing, a spiritual hunger for God's plan to unfold in your life in ways you never expected. God is stirring you because He has something incredible for you to step into. Sometimes when we experience this stirring, we become anxious or impatient. We wonder, why am I feeling this way? Why does it feel like I'm not satisfied with where I am? But what you must understand is that this feeling is a gift. It is God's way of showing you that He is at work in your heart, preparing you for the next chapter in your journey. God has placed a unique calling on your life, and the desire for more is the first step in moving toward it. This stirring often leads to a deep sense of dissatisfaction with mediocrity and complacency. You begin to feel that your life cannot be confined to the limitations of your current circumstances. You may look around and think, I know I was made for more than this. There is more purpose, more passion, more fulfillment waiting for me. That is God preparing your heart for the greater things He has in store. The stirring within you is not a mistake, nor is it a random feeling. It is a divine prompt encouraging you to rise to a new level. But here's the thing, God doesn't stir your heart without a plan. He doesn't give you a longing for more without providing a way to attain it. That desire for greatness, whether it's to grow in your faith, to expand your influence, to serve in a greater capacity, or to achieve something beyond your current reach, is a reflection of the plan He has designed specifically for you. When you feel this stirring, it's time to take action. You are being called to move forward, to let go of the comfort of where you are and step into the unknown, trusting that God will lead you. But there is also a challenge in this stirring, a challenge to rise above the comfort zone that has held you captive for so long. When God begins to stir your heart, it's a sign that He is inviting you into something bigger. He's inviting you to break free from the ordinary and embrace the extraordinary. The longing you feel for more is a divine calling to expand your capacity to take bold steps and to rise to new heights. God is calling you to greatness, but it won't be a smooth journey. It will require effort. It will require sacrifice. And it will require a willingness to leave behind the old and step into the new. But I can promise you this, the greater things God has for you are far beyond what you could ever imagine. When He stirs your heart, He is preparing you to see the fulfillment of the dreams and purposes He has planted deep within you. So, if you are feeling that stirring today, that desire for something more, don't ignore it. Don't let it fade away. Lean into it. Embrace it. Let it propel you forward into the life God is calling you to. Know that God is faithful to complete the work He has begun in you. The longing for something greater is a promise that He is leading you to a place of purpose, abundance, and impact that you have not yet seen. Rise to the call, trust in His timing, and step into the greatness He is preparing for you. The best is yet to come. When God is preparing to bless you with something bigger than you could ever imagine, one of the most powerful steps you can take is to walk in obedience and action, even when the path ahead is unclear. This is one of the hardest things for many of us, isn't it? The uncertainty of the future can stir up fear, doubt, and confusion. We want answers. We want to know exactly what's coming and when it will happen. But often, God's plan unfolds step by step, and He asks us to trust Him by moving forward without seeing the full picture. Obedience is not about understanding everything in advance. It's about responding to God's call with a willing heart, even when the future seems uncertain. Think of Abraham. God told him to leave his homeland, to leave everything familiar, and to go to a land that He would show him. Abraham didn't have the full map, didn't have the specifics about where he was going or what awaited him. All he had was God's promise and command to go. And what did Abraham do? He went. He stepped forward in faith, even though he didn't have all the answers. And because of his obedience, God blessed him in ways he could never have imagined. You see, obedience is a key that unlocks God's blessing. God is not looking for perfection or complete understanding. He is looking for willingness. A heart that is ready to trust Him enough to take action, even when we can't see the outcome. This doesn't mean you won't have questions or concerns. It just means that you choose to trust that God knows the way better than you do. His wisdom surpasses yours. His plan is always for your good, even when it's hard to see in the moment. God doesn't always give us the full picture right away. He rarely lays out every detail of the journey before us. Why? Because He wants us to trust Him in the process. He wants to stretch our faith, build our character, and refine our trust in His timing. Obedience without full understanding is a powerful expression of trust in God's sovereignty. The moment you step forward in obedience, you are saying, God, I trust you even when I can't see what's ahead. I trust that you are guiding me, and I know that you will show me the next step when the time is right. Action is equally important. It's not enough to feel a stirring in your heart or to have a sense that God is calling you to something greater. Faith requires action. Faith without works is dead, James 2:26. Obedience to God isn't passive. It's not just waiting for something to happen. It's actively moving in the direction God is calling you to go, even when you don't have every detail figured out. The action step is about trusting that each small movement forward will lead you closer to the destiny He has prepared for you. Think about the story of Peter walking on water. When Jesus called him to come out of the boat, Peter didn't wait for the waters to calm down. He didn't wait for the circumstances to align perfectly. He stepped out in obedience, walking toward Jesus in the midst of the storm. And as long as his eyes were fixed on Jesus, he walked in faith. But the moment he let fear take over, he began to sink. God is calling you to step out of the boat and walk toward the greater things He has for you, even when the waters are rough, even when the future is unclear. Your obedience and your action will determine whether you experience the miracle of walking in faith or the fear of sinking into doubt. When God calls you to something bigger, He will not always give you the entire blueprint up front. He may give you just enough for the next step, and it's up to you to trust Him with the rest. Your willingness to obey, even without knowing all the details, is the act of faith that unlocks God's blessing. God will never call you to take a step in the wrong direction. If He is calling you to move, He will always provide the way, the strength, and the guidance you need to keep moving forward. And then here's the beautiful part. God blesses your willingness to act. When you step forward in obedience, even when you don't have all the answers, He sees your faith and your trust in Him, and He will bless that. Your obedience is a seed that will grow into something far greater than you can imagine. It's a promise that God will meet you in the midst of your faithfulness, guiding you, strengthening you, and open doors that only He can open. God is not asking you to have everything figured out before you take the first step. He is asking you to trust Him enough to move, to act, and to obey. He is asking you to rise in faith, to step out in courage, and to follow His leading, knowing that as you do, He will be faithful to fulfill His promises and bless your obedience. So take the step. Don't wait for all the answers. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Step out in faith and obedience and watch how God works in your life, leading you to something far greater than you ever imagined. The future is in His hands, and He will guide you every step of the way. There comes a time in every person's life when they reach the end of themselves, a moment when the heart is crushed beneath the weight of trials too heavy to bear. You cry out into the darkness, not sure if anyone is listening. You feel abandoned, forgotten, even broken. But I tell you today, there is purpose in your pain. There is divine intention behind the breaking. For the man God wants to use, He must first break. This world teaches us to avoid pain, to run from hardship, to numb ourselves with distraction and deny the struggle. But God operates differently. He does not waste pain. He uses it. He molds us through it. He prepares His vessels in the furnace of affliction, not in comfort. If you've been broken, if you've walked through the fire, it may be because heaven has called your name. The man who stands tall in the purpose of God has known the valley. He's tasted sorrow. He's wrestled with despair, but in the depths of that breaking, God is near. When all you have is a whisper left in your soul, and yet you whisper his name, that is where divine strength is born. You see, God does not use the proud, he resists the arrogant, but the humble, the broken, the ones who limp instead of run, these are the ones he lifts up. Consider the giants of Scripture. Joseph, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused and locked away in prison. He was broken before he was exalted. Moses, mighty in Egypt, became a shepherd in the wilderness for 40 years. He was broken of self sufficiency before he became a deliverer. David, anointed king as a boy, fled for his life, living in caves, crying out in anguish before wearing the crown. And let us not forget the Son of God, beaten, bruised, and crucified before the resurrection glory. Do not despise the breaking, do not curse the wilderness, for it is there that the voice of God grows loudest. It is there that your character is refined, your motives are purified, and your soul is stripped of pride. The breaking is not punishment, it is preparation. The breaking is not rejection, it is redirection. God is not angry with you, he is shaping you. You ask, why must it hurt so much? Why must the road be so long? Because what God is doing in you is not shallow, it's not temporary, it's eternal. He is forging something that will outlast storms, trials, and time itself. Shallow roots produce weak trees, but roots grown deep in the dark soil of suffering create oaks of righteousness. The deeper the pain, the stronger the man. The longer the breaking, the greater the calling. When God breaks a man, he does not leave him shattered, he remakes him. He remolds him into a vessel that can carry his glory. You cannot carry divine purpose with untested hands. You cannot walk in anointing without first being emptied of your own ambition. You cannot bring healing to others until you yourself have been wounded and healed by the hand of God. The man God uses has scars. The man God uses has faced nights of weeping only to rise with joy in the morning. The man God uses has walked alone, misunderstood, abandoned, even by those closest to him. But he walks with God, and that is enough. You may be in the season of breaking right now. You may feel like your prayers are bouncing off the ceiling. You may be surrounded by silence. But friend, God is not absent. He is present. He is watching every tear, holding every shattered piece, writing every moment into your destiny. He is pruning what cannot remain. He is stripping away what would ruin you in the next season. He is emptying you of yourself so that you can be filled with him. The world tells you to be strong. God tells you to be weak in his presence. The world tells you to have it all together. God tells you to bring him your mess. The world tells you to hide your wounds. God uses them as proof of your survival. What if your current pain is the very tool God is using to prepare you for something greater than you've imagined? What if the breaking is the birthing of a new purpose? What if the silence is the soil where faith takes root? What if the closed doors are divine protection, not rejection? You are not being punished, you are being prepared. God chooses the foolish things to shame the wise. He chooses the weak to confound the strong. He selects the rejected, the outcast, the brokenhearted, and then he raises them up. He fills them with fire. He sends them back into the world with authority, with compassion, with power. And those who once sat in darkness now carry the light. If you want to be used by God, don't fear the breaking, embrace it. Lean into it. Ask him to reveal his purpose in it. Let him strip away everything false, everything fragile, everything that cannot endure. Let him build something holy in you, something eternal. And you are broken. You listen more closely. You pray more deeply. You depend more fully. And that's where the miracle happens. That's where lives are changed, not through polished perfection, but through the raw, real, honest story of a person who was broken and still chose to believe. You may walk with a limp, but you'll walk in power. You may have battle scars, but they'll shine with glory. You may feel small, but heaven sees a warrior rising from the ashes. God doesn't need your strength. He needs your surrender. He doesn't want your performance. He wants your obedience. He doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. And the breaking is his classroom. If you're in that classroom today, take heart. You're not alone. The one who formed you in the womb is forming you again, not to destroy you, but to equip you, not to shame you, but to anoint you. So hold on, even if by a thread. Cry out, even if with a whisper. Trust him, even when it hurts. Because after the breaking comes the blessing. After the pain comes the power. After the cross comes the crown. And when God lifts you up, when he places his hand upon your life and says, now, my child, go, you will walk not in your strength, but in his. You will speak not your words, but his fire. You will live not for applause, but for eternity. Let the breaking do its work. Let it crush the ego, silence the pride, soften the heart. Let it empty you of fear, of doubt, of the need to be seen. For the more invisible you are before man, the more visible you become before heaven. And when you rise, because you will rise, you'll carry the fragrance of brokenness, a holy aroma that draws the wounded, the searching, the lost. You'll become a signpost to others that God still restores, that God still heals, that God still uses broken men. So don't rush the process. Don't shortcut the pain. There is sacredness in suffering when God is in it. There is beauty in the ashes when the fire is divine. There is glory on the other side of surrender. This is not the end of your story. It's the beginning. A new chapter written in the ink of tears and the language of faith. God is not finished with you. He's just getting started. Let him break you. Let him use you, and let the world see what heaven can do with a life fully surrendered. There are moments in life when everything seems to fall apart. Plans crumble, relationships break, dreams dissolve, and the weight of disappointment presses heavily on the heart. It's easy to believe that such moments are signs of divine displeasure, that somehow you failed or been forgotten. But what if, in reality, these moments are not signs of punishment, but divine preparation? When God allows pain into a person's life, it's never random. He doesn't break simply for the sake of breaking. He breaks to build. He wounds to heal. He empties to fill. It's not an act of cruelty. It's an act of deep love and holy purpose. Just as a skilled potter presses and reshapes the clay, so does God mold those he intends to use. He sees beyond your present struggle and envisions a future you cannot yet grasp. And to get you there, he must first strip away what cannot remain. This process is never comfortable. It can feel like everything you once relied on is being taken from you. Your strength begins to fade. Your plans no longer work, and your confidence may falter. But in that very unraveling, something sacred is happening. You are being led to the end of yourself and to the beginning of something greater. This true transformation never happens in the comfort zone. It happens in the furnace, in the wilderness, in the nights spent on your knees with tears streaming down your face. Think of a seed. Before it can grow, it must break. Buried beneath the soil, hidden from sight, it dies to its old form so that something new can emerge. In the same way, your brokenness is not the end. It is the beginning of a divine process. What you call falling apart, God calls being planted. And what feels like death may actually be the first breath of new life. You may not understand the pain while you're in it. You may not see the purpose in the breaking, but trust this: God wastes nothing. Every tear is collected. Every cry is heard. Every silent moment is recorded. And one day, when the time is right, you will look back and realize that the breaking wasn't meant to destroy you. It was meant to deliver you into your destiny. So if you're walking through the fire right now, hold on. If the night feels endless, stay the course. God is doing something deep, something eternal. And when He's finished, you will rise, not the same, but stronger, not bitter, but refined, not empty, but overflowing. You will carry a story that shines with glory, and others will see in you the evidence that brokenness was never punishment. It was the sacred preparation for something far greater than you ever imagined. There is a sacred pattern in the way God chooses His instruments. He does not call the loudest voice or the strongest hand. He does not search for the flawless or the famous. Instead, He looks for the ones who have been humbled, those who have walked through fire and come out not boasting, but bowing. God's power is not made perfect in pride. It is revealed through humility, through the lives of those who have been wounded, tested, and made whole by His mercy. When a person is broken of pride, something miraculous happens. Their heart becomes tender, their ears more attuned to the voice of God, and their eyes more sensitive to the needs of others. They no longer strive for applause or recognition. They have seen what the world cannot offer, and they have tasted the grace that only heaven provides. This humility becomes fertile soil for God's purpose to take root. Pride, on the other hand, stands as a barrier between God and man. The proud heart says, I can do this on my own. But the humble heart says, without you, Lord, I am nothing. And it is in that place of surrender, that place of weakness, that God begins to move. He delights in lifting up the lowly, in exalting the servant, in giving voice to the one who was once silenced by suffering. The wounded soul becomes a vessel of healing because they understand pain in a way the proud never will. Scars tell a story. They are reminders that something tried to destroy you but failed. They are proof that the grace of God was stronger than the battle you faced. While the world hides its scars in shame, God uses them as marks of His mercy. When someone sees your scars and hears your story, they see the hand of God at work. They don't just hear words, they witness a life transformed. And that testimony is more powerful than any sermon or speech. The most effective voices in the kingdom are not always the most educated or eloquent. Often they are the ones who have cried the most tears, endured the longest nights, and yet still speak with faith. These are the ones who have been crushed, not to be discarded, but to be refined. Their pain became a pulpit, their weakness a witness, and their humility a highway for the Spirit of God. So if you feel weak, if you feel small, if life has broken you down and stripped you of everything you thought made you valuable, know this: you are in a position to be used by God, not in spite of your wounds, but because of them. He draws near to the brokenhearted. He raises up the humble, and He chooses those who the world might overlook to carry His greatest assignments. Your scars have a purpose. Your story has power, and your humility is the doorway through which God's glory will shine. In the grand narrative of Scripture, there is a truth that echoes from Genesis to Revelation. Before every great calling, there is great crushing. The men and women who walked in divine purpose did not arrive at their destiny untouched by suffering. They were refined through delay, disappointment, rejection, and deep personal loss. Their strength was not forged in palaces, but in prisons, deserts, and lonely places. Before God anoints a life, He allows it to be broken. Take Joseph, loved by his father, favored with dreams from God, yet thrown into a pit by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused by Potiphar's wife, and left to rot in prison for years. His calling didn't arrive wrapped in comfort. It was delivered through betrayal and injustice. But it was in that prison through those dark years that God prepared his heart. The boy who once boasted about dreams became a man who could steward nations with wisdom and mercy. The pit wasn't the end of the dream, it was the beginning of the process. Moses, raised in the luxury of Pharaoh's palace, seemed destined for leadership. But one rash decision sent him fleeing into the wilderness for 40 years. He went from royalty to a forgotten shepherd, wandering the backside of the desert. But it was there, far from the noise and pride of Egypt, that God called to him through a burning bush. The desert didn't delay Moses' purpose, it defined it, stripped away his arrogance, taught him dependence, and prepared him to lead a nation through the very wilderness he had learned to survive. And then there's David, anointed as king while still a shepherd boy, yet his path to the throne was paved with pain. He slayed giants, won battles, and earned praise. But that same praise turned Saul's heart against him. David fled, lived in caves, wept in isolation, and wrestled with the weight of being called but not yet crowned. The man after God's heart was not shaped by victory alone, but by long seasons of waiting, crying, and trusting. His songs of worship were often born in sorrow, and those psalms still comfort us today. And what of Christ? The Son of God, perfect and sinless, was not exempt from suffering. He was despised, rejected, mocked, beaten, and crucified. The one through whom all things were made was broken for us. Before the resurrection came the cross. Before the glory came the Garden of Gethsemane. And in that garden, he showed us the path to true calling. Surrender, obedience, and suffering embraced with love. This is the pattern. This is the rhythm of heaven. Crushing before calling, breaking before anointing, delay before destiny. Because God is not interested in raising up people who are merely talented. He desires hearts that are tested and true. He does not want performers. He wants vessels. And vessels must be emptied before they can be filled. So if you find yourself in the crushing, if your path feels long, your dreams feel distant, and your soul feels weary, take heart. You are in good company. You are walking the very road that Joseph, Moses, David, and even Christ walked. And just like them, your breaking is not a detour from your destiny. It is the doorway to it. Pain has a way of stripping life down to its bare essentials. In the moments when comfort is gone, when answers don't come, and when everything feels silent, those are the moments that drive a soul to its knees. Pain exposes the weakness of human strength and the limitations of worldly wisdom. It forces the heart to look beyond what is visible and reach for what is eternal. And in doing so, it creates a pathway into the deepest kind of prayer and the most unshakable form of faith. There is something sacred about the prayers that rise in the darkness. They are not polished, they are not rehearsed. They are raw cries from a place of need that words can barely express. When the heart is breaking and the tears won't stop, prayer becomes more than a religious act. It becomes survival. It becomes a lifeline. You are no longer praying for show or out of routine. You are praying because God is your only hope. This kind of prayer cannot be manufactured in seasons of ease. When everything is going well, faith is often assumed but rarely tested. But when everything falls apart, when the job is lost, the loved one is gone, the diagnosis is devastating, prayer becomes different. It becomes real. You begin to speak to God as a child speaks to a father in the dark. You stop pretending. You stop performing. You just cry out. And in that cry, you discover the beginning of intimacy. Some of the most powerful men and women of faith were not formed in comfort, but in crisis. They learned to hear God's voice in the silence. They learned to trust his heart when they couldn't trace his hand. Their faith was not rooted in feelings, but in the character of God. They knew what it was like to be alone with him, to wrestle in the night, and to walk away marked by the encounter. Faith forged in pain is different. It's not shaken by storms because it was built in the storm. It doesn't collapse in uncertainty because it was born in the unknown. This kind of faith doesn't demand answers. It clings to the presence of God even when answers don't come. It holds on when everything says to let go. It believes not because the circumstances are good, but because God is. This intimacy with God, this depth of relationship cannot be learned when everything is comfortable. It comes when you've been emptied, when you've come to the end of yourself, and when you have nowhere left to run but into his arms. And when you come through the other side of the pain, you emerge not just with answers, but with an anchor. You know who your God is. You know he was there. You know he sustained you, and your faith becomes something that no storm can take away. So if you're in the valley, if you're praying and hearing nothing, if you're hurting and feeling forgotten, keep praying. Keep pressing in. God is not distant in your pain, he is near. He is building something deep inside you. And when the dawn breaks, you will find that you have not only survived, you've been changed. You've become strong. You've become rooted, and you've found a faith that can weather anything. There is a moment in every believer's journey where they come to a crossroads, not of choice, but of surrender. It's the moment when every effort, every plan, every ounce of human strength has been exhausted. And in that moment, a realization begins to dawn that true power, eternal, divine, unshakable power, does not begin with striving. It begins with surrender. The world teaches that power is taken, earned, seized through ambition and determination. But the kingdom of God operates in an entirely different way. In God's economy, the greatest strength comes not from what you can hold on to, but from what you're willing to lay down. God is not impressed by talent, degrees, or accolades. He is drawn to a heart that says, not my will, but yours be done. Think of the Apostle Paul, a man who once boasted in his heritage, his education, his zeal, but after encountering Christ, he counted all of it as loss. Why? Because he discovered that in his weakness, God's strength was made perfect. Paul's ministry didn't explode after he conquered everything. It exploded after he gave everything up. He said, I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. That's the essence of surrender. No longer living for your own name, but for his. When you finally let go of the need to be in control, of the fear of failure, of the desire to be seen, you become usable in ways you never imagined. The things you thought disqualified you, your past, your wounds, your limitations, become the very things God uses to show his glory. Because when people see a surrendered life, they don't see the person. They see the power of God flowing through them. God is not waiting for you to be perfect. He's waiting for you to be willing. And willingness doesn't require strength. It requires surrender. The greatest victories in the spiritual life come not when we fight harder, but when we kneel lower. When we stop trying to do it all in our own strength and simply say, God, I trust you. I need you. I give you all of me. It's in that moment when you let go of control, ego, pride, and fear that heaven opens. Power flows not to those who demand it, but to those who lay down their rights and take up their cross. So if you're weary from trying, if you're burdened by the weight of your own plans, let go. Surrender is not the end. It's the beginning of real power. It's the place where God's strength takes over and his glory is revealed through your life in ways you never dreamed possible. There is something extraordinary about a life that has been shattered and then pieced back together by the hand of God. The world may see brokenness as a disqualification, as a reason to hide, to shrink back, or to be silent. But in the kingdom of God, brokenness is never the end of the story. It is the place where the real story begins. Because when God heals a broken person, they don't just become whole again, they become a beacon of hope for others still walking through the ruins. A person who has been through the fire and survived carries something that cannot be faked: authenticity. Their words are not theory, they're truth carved out in the wilderness. Their compassion is not shallow, it's born from the deep well of their own suffering. When they speak, others listen, not because they're perfect, but because they've walked where others are walking. And they've come out the other side, still standing, still breathing, still believing. The beauty of God's restoration is that He doesn't just heal and hide the scars, He uses them. He turns what was once a source of shame into a source of strength. What once nearly broke you becomes the very thing God uses to bring healing to others. That's the power of redemption. That's the power of grace. Think about it. Who better to reach the addict than the one who's been set free? Who better to comfort the grieving than someone who's known deep loss and found peace again? Who better to speak to the hopeless than the one who has stood in darkness and watched God bring light? God never wastes a wound. When He restores, He also commissions. He turns pain into purpose and messes into ministry. The broken become beacons, not because they have all the answers, but because they've seen the faithfulness of God firsthand. They can say, I've been where you are. I've questioned, I've cried, I've doubted. But God met me there. He picked me up. He didn't abandon me. He healed me when I thought I was beyond healing. And if He did it for me, He can do it for you. Their life becomes a living testimony that God is still in the business of restoration, that He doesn't just repair what's damaged, He makes it stronger, more beautiful, and more purposeful than it was before. They carry a light that shines especially bright in places of pain because it's been tested in the darkness. So if you are in a season of breaking, take heart. What feels like the end might just be the beginning. And when healing comes, and it will, you will not only rise, but you will rise with a voice that carries weight, with a heart that overflows with mercy, and with a life that lights the way for others. Because in the hands of God, the broken don't stay broken, they become bridges. They become beacons. They become living proof that God's grace truly restores all things. Or have you ever waited for something so long that you started to wonder if it would ever come to pass? You prayed, you fasted, you believed, and yet nothing seemed to move. You watched others receive their breakthrough, celebrate their victory, walk into their answered prayers, while you sat silently, feeling like heaven had forgotten your address. And still, somehow, you held on. Even with tears streaming down your face, even with doubt screaming in your mind, you waited, not because you were strong, but because deep inside, a whisper wouldn't let you give up. That whisper, that voice was hope. And today I want to tell you, God's timing is about to make you cry. You see, there's a moment in every journey when it feels like God is late, like He's missed the deadline, like He's silent when you need Him loudest. But what if I told you that He's never been more on time than He is right now? That even in the silence, He was arranging every detail, that even in your heartbreak, He was preparing a miracle that will bring you to your knees in awe. We don't serve a God who moves according to our schedule. We serve a God who sees the end from the beginning, a God who knows what we need before we even ask, a God who's not just trying to bless us, but to build us. That's why the wait often hurts. It's why it tests you, because the wait is not punishment, it's preparation. It's not denial, it's divine development. He's not holding it back from you. He's holding it together for you. Sometimes the very thing that feels like a delay is God's way of protecting you from receiving a gift you're not ready to carry. Think about it. What if you had received what you prayed for last year? Would you have handled it wisely? Would it have deepened your faith or inflated your ego? Would it have blessed others or distracted you from the purpose? God knows. Let me remind you of something. Lazarus was dead 4 days before Jesus arrived. To those watching, it looked like Jesus was too late, but Jesus was never late. He was setting the stage for a greater glory, because anyone can heal the sick, but only the Son of God can raise the dead. And when God shows up late in your story, it's often because he's about to do something that no man can take credit for. He's about to defy expectations. He's about to make it obvious that it was never about luck or chance or human effort. It was grace, pure, unstoppable, undeniable grace. God's timing is about to make you cry, not tears of pain, but of overwhelming gratitude, because when it happens, it will make sense. You'll look back on the sleepless nights, the battles you fought alone, the prayers that felt unanswered, and you'll see how it was all leading here. You'll understand why the door had to close, why they had to leave, why the job didn't work out. You'll see that every disappointment was really a divine appointment in disguise. God was always orchestrating it. Sometimes God delays the visible blessing so he can do a deeper work in you. He's more concerned with your character than your comfort, because you can receive a blessing and lose it if you're not ready. But when you've been refined through the fire of waiting, you come out not just with a promise, but the maturity to handle it. You become someone who doesn't just receive miracles, but someone who becomes a miracle for others. Maybe you're sitting in a season where nothing makes sense. You've done all you know how to do. You've sown in tears, you've worshiped through pain, you've obeyed when it was hard, and still no sign of change. Can I tell you something? You are closer than you think. Often the darkest night comes right before the dawn, and God is never idle. He's not ignoring you. He's not indifferent. He's invested. He's involved. And his silence is not absence. It's strategy. Because when God moves, he moves suddenly. In one moment, everything can change. In Scripture, we read about Joseph, a man who was given a dream, only to be betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and thrown into prison. For years, nothing looked like the dream. But in one day, he went from the prison to the palace. One conversation changed his entire life. What if your one day is on the way? What if your name is already being mentioned in rooms you haven't walked into yet? What if the people who need to find you are already on their way to you? What if everything you've been waiting for is being packaged perfectly behind the scenes? God's timing is about to make you cry. You're not going to cry because of pain anymore. You're going to cry because of joy, because of the faithfulness of God, because you'll finally see that he never forgot you, that every seed you planted, every sacrifice you made, every moment you chose to believe when there was no evidence to believe, that none of it was wasted. God saw it all, and he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. The world tells us to hustle, to grind, to make it happen ourselves, but God calls us to rest in him, to trust that his timing is better than our deadline, that his ways are higher, that he knows what we need even when we don't. And I get it, trusting is hard, especially when you're surrounded by reminders of what hasn't happened yet. But faith is not about what you see, it's about who you believe. I came to remind someone today that the story isn't over. Don't you dare give up now. Don't you settle for less. Don't you bow to the pressure. You're not late. You're not behind. You're right on schedule for a God-sized testimony. And what he has prepared for you is going to be worth every tear, every delay, every heartbreak. In the book of Habakkuk, God says, though it tarries, wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not delay. That means if God spoke it, it will happen. Not maybe, not possibly, surely. And that's a promise you can anchor your soul in, even when nothing makes sense, even when time is passing, even when your faith is running low. You don't have to chase what God has already assigned to you. You don't have to manipulate doors open. You don't have to beg people to believe in you. When it's your time, everything will align. People will favor you without knowing why. Resources will appear. Opportunities will find you, because what God has ordained, no man can stop. So take heart, lift your head, dry your eyes. Your prayers have been heard. Your faith has been noticed. Your obedience has been recorded. Heaven is responding. And when it happens, you won't just celebrate. You'll be overwhelmed. You'll cry because of how perfect it all fits together. You'll cry because of how He protected you from what you thought you wanted. You'll cry because the wait was hard, but the blessing is holy. It's tailor-made. It's better than what you asked for. And the best part, you won't just receive it, you'll reflect Him through it. Your testimony will be the light that helps someone else keep going. Your breakthrough will be someone else's blueprint. Your tears will water someone else's faith. And that's the beauty of God's timing. It's never just about you. It's about every life your story will touch. So let me say it one more time. With every ounce of faith in my spirit, God's timing is about to make you cry. And not because He made you wait, but because He made it beautiful. Because He exceeded your expectations. Because He never gave up on you. Because He wrote a story that you couldn't have written for yourself. And when it unfolds, all you'll be able to say is only God could have done this. Keep waiting. Keep believing, keep preparing, because the suddenly is on the way. And when it happens, it will all make sense. You'll cry, but this time with joy. God's delay is not His denial, though it may feel like heaven is silent or like the promises spoken over your life have stalled. You must understand that God's silence is not the same as His absence. When things don't happen in our preferred timeline, we often misinterpret it as a sign that God has changed His mind about us, or that maybe we misunderstood His will, but nothing could be further from the truth. The delay isn't a punishment or a rejection. It's a necessary pause that serves a higher purpose, one we may not understand in the moment, but will later come to deeply appreciate. Think about it. We live in a world that celebrates instant results, fast answers, fast success, quick resolutions. But God operates on a different level. He isn't just concerned with giving us what we ask for. He's more concerned with when He gives it and who we are when we receive it. If you're praying for something and it hasn't happened yet, it doesn't mean that God said no. It may simply mean not now. And that not now is often the most loving answer God can give, even when it breaks our hearts temporarily. Delays can be divine protection. Sometimes what looks like a setback is actually God shielding you from something you can't yet see. What if the relationship you begged God to restore would have led you away from your calling? What if the job you thought was perfect would have destroyed your mental health or pulled you away from your family? What if the opportunity you prayed for would have fed your pride instead of growing your humility? God sees what we can't. He knows the whole story when we only know a chapter. And because of that, His delays are not just wise, they're merciful. There are times in our journey where we're not ready to receive what we're asking for. God is not only working on the blessing, He's working on you, your character, your faith, your maturity, the ability to hold and honor what you've been praying for. He's building your endurance and your spiritual depth so that when the answer finally comes, you don't crumble under its weight. You were never meant to just receive a blessing. You were meant to carry it with purpose. And that takes preparation. That takes time. We also need to understand that God is not obligated to rush just because we're impatient. He's more committed to our growth than our comfort. And many times the growth happens in the waiting. That's where trust is stretched. That's where you learn to lean not on your own understanding, but on His faithfulness. That's where you learn to worship without needing answers, to obey without needing signs, to believe even when the evidence seems to point in the opposite direction. Every person used by God in Scripture experienced divine delay. Abraham waited decades for the promised son. David was anointed king, but had to spend years in the wilderness before he wore the crown. Even Jesus waited 30 years before stepping into public ministry. Was God late? Never. He was developing their faith, their strength, and their readiness to steward the calling on their lives. The wait was not wasted. It was where their roots grew deep. And if you're in that waiting season now, know this: your roots are growing, even if you can't see it yet. When God finally moves, you will look back and see that the delay was never about keeping something from you. It was about making you ready for what he had already prepared. You'll see how he connected every piece, how he blocked certain things to protect you, how he held some doors closed until the right time, and you'll thank him not just for what he gave you, but for what he didn't give you when you weren't ready. So don't confuse a delay with denial. God is not ignoring your prayers. He has heard every word, seen every tear, and felt every ache of your heart. But because he is a good father, he's more concerned with giving you the right thing at the right time in the right way. And when that time comes, you'll understand why it had to happen exactly like this. You'll understand why the answer didn't come sooner and why the wait was not a waste. For delay is a divine appointment in disguise. It's not the end of the story. It's just the quiet part before the breakthrough. So keep trusting, keep obeying, keep believing. God is never late. His timing is perfect. And when it comes, it will be beautiful, so beautiful that it may just make you cry. The wait is preparing you for the wait. It might sound simple, but it holds a truth that runs deep into the heart of what it means to walk with God. Many people want the promise, the blessing, the platform, the miracle, but few want the process. Few want the long, silent nights. Few want the years of faithfulness in obscurity. Few want the pruning, the stretching, the pressure. But the truth is, without the weight, you won't be able to carry the weight of what God wants to place in your life. God is not in the business of giving gifts that will crush you. He is not going to bless you with something that you're not yet strong enough to sustain. This is why the wait exists. The waiting season isn't just a pause, it's a place of preparation. It is the hidden workshop of heaven where your soul is strengthened, your character is developed, your motives are purified, and your faith is made real. If you skip the wait, you miss the formation. You miss the deep internal work God is doing so that you don't just receive something. You're ready to live in it, grow in it, and glorify him through it. Think about how gold is refined. It must pass through intense fire. The impurities rise to the surface and are scraped away. Only then can it shine with its true value. The waiting season is like that fire. It brings things to the surface: doubt, insecurity, impatience, pride, things you didn't even know were there. And God uses the wait not to shame you, but to purify you, to make you stronger, clearer, and more aligned with his will. We often ask God for promotion, increase, elevation, but elevation comes with responsibility. It comes with pressure. It comes with spiritual weight. And if your inner life isn't strong, that promotion can quickly become a burden instead of a blessing. So God, in his mercy, holds it back, not because he doesn't want to give it to you, but because he wants to prepare you for it. The longer the wait, the more meaningful the purpose. That's why you shouldn't compare your journey to anyone else's. You don't know the weight they're carrying. You don't know the weight you're being prepared to carry. Joseph waited years in prison for a dream God gave him as a teenager. During that time, it seemed like nothing was happening, but everything was happening beneath the surface. God was sharpening his leadership skills, humbling his heart, and maturing his perspective. So when Pharaoh finally called him out of the prison, Joseph wasn't just gifted, he was ready. He knew how to manage what was coming. He had been prepared for the weight of responsibility that came with being second in command over all of Egypt. That preparation didn't come quickly. It came through time, tears, trials, and trust. The same applies to you. Every closed door, every delayed answer, every season where you feel like you've been overlooked. It's not for nothing. It's part of the process. God is building a foundation in you that can hold what He's about to place on you. And the stronger the foundation, the higher He can take you. The deeper the roots, the taller the tree can grow. You may not see it now, but you're being equipped, shaken, pruned, not punished, prepared. Don't despise the small beginnings or the hidden seasons. Don't underestimate the value of being faithful in what seems insignificant. David was anointed king, but he spent years tending sheep and running from Saul. What was he doing in those years? Learning to worship, learning to lead, learning to fight battles in private before fighting giants in public. If God would have placed him on the throne too soon, the weight of the crown would have crushed him. But when the time was right, David had been forged in fire. He had been made ready. The same God who gave you the promise is the God who is preparing you to carry it. And He's doing it with precision. He's making sure that when you get there, you don't crumble under pressure. You won't just arrive, you'll thrive, because you'll know what it took to get there. You'll appreciate the journey. You'll carry the blessing with humility. And you'll be a vessel that gives God glory, not one that seeks your own. So if you're in the waiting room right now, don't rush to get out. Don't push past what God is trying to do in your heart. Let Him form you. Let Him grow you. Let Him teach you to trust even when it hurts. Every moment you feel unseen is a moment He is working. Every time you feel forgotten is a time He is forming something new within you. The wait may feel long, it may feel heavy, but it is not wasted. It is not in vain. It is sacred ground where God is preparing you not just for what you're praying for, but for the weight that comes with it. And when the promise finally comes, you'll carry it with strength, wisdom, and faith. You'll carry it not as someone who stumbled into a blessing, but as someone who was made ready through the fire. The wait is preparing you for the wait, and it will be worth it. When God moves, He moves suddenly. That truth can feel both comforting and confusing when you're in a long season of waiting. You might be looking around at your circumstances, wondering why nothing seems to be changing, why prayers feel unanswered, why everything feels still, quiet, delayed. It can be disheartening when it looks like heaven is closed and you're stuck in the same place day after day with no sign of movement. But what you don't see is what God is doing in the background. Just because you can't perceive the progress doesn't mean it isn't happening. God is always working, even in the stillness, even in silence. And when the moment comes, when His appointed time arrives, it will happen so quickly, so powerfully, and so clearly that it will erase years of confusion in an instant. One of the most powerful examples in Scripture of God's sudden movement is the story of Joseph. He was thrown into a pit by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and imprisoned for years. Nothing about his situation looked like it was moving toward the dream God gave him in his youth. In fact, every chapter of his life seemed to move further away from it. He had every reason to believe the dream was dead. But then, in one single day, everything changed. He woke up in prison and went to bed in the palace. God had been orchestrating everything in the background. Pharaoh's dreams, the famine, the need for a leader with wisdom, and when the timing was right, Joseph was called out. He didn't have time to prepare, to get ready, to strategize. It happened suddenly. And he was ready because God had prepared him in private. That's how God works. Often we think He's slow, but in reality, He's strategic. He is setting up circumstances, moving people, aligning moments. His ways are higher than ours. His vision is bigger than what we can comprehend. And while we focus on the delay, He's focused on the impact. He's writing a story that has a divine plot twist. And when He decides to turn the page, it can shift everything in a heartbeat. Think about the Israelites standing before the Red Sea. They were trapped between the water in front of them and Pharaoh's army behind them. To the natural eye, there was no way out. But in one sudden moment, God parted the sea. Something impossible became possible. That's what happens when God steps in. He doesn't need time to figure things out. He doesn't need help or approval. When He moves, He moves with power and purpose. He didn't need 100 steps to make it happen. One word from him, one breath, one command, and everything changes. This is why it's so important to stay faithful in the waiting, because breakthrough often comes suddenly. And when it does, you won't have time to go back and get ready. You won't have time to build the character, the wisdom, the discipline. That's why God builds you in the wait. He strengthens you before the door opens, because once it opens, things move fast. There's a weight that comes with sudden promotion, and only someone who's been forged in the fire of delay will be able to carry it well. Suddenly doesn't mean randomly. It means divinely timed. It means that while you were doing the ordinary, God was preparing the extraordinary. While you were staying faithful in small things, He was working on big things. That's how many breakthroughs come. They interrupt the routine. They show up in the middle of an ordinary day, and suddenly your whole life shifts. That's why it's dangerous to give up too soon. You never know if today is the day God chooses to move. We also need to remember that sudden breakthroughs are rarely just for us. When God moved Joseph into power, it wasn't just to bless Joseph. It was to save nations. When God moves in your life, it's often because He's positioning you to be a solution, a vessel, a bridge for others. You become the answer to someone else's prayer. That's why the wait is often long, because the purpose is greater than just your personal comfort. It's about kingdom impact. There's something beautiful and humbling about how God works. He lets us go through seasons where we have no idea how it will all come together, where we walk by faith and not by sight. And then, just when we least expect it, everything shifts. He gives us just enough light to take the next step, and then, in a moment of divine timing, He reveals the full picture. And when it happens, it brings clarity, it brings awe, it brings tears, not of sadness, but of deep, overwhelming gratitude. If you've been waiting for a long time, feeling like nothing is moving, don't lose heart. Don't assume God has forgotten. Don't give in to the lie that it's too late. He is not pacing the floor of heaven trying to figure things out. He already has the day, the hour, the minute marked, and when it comes, you won't need to force it. You won't need to chase it. It will meet you. It will align. It will unfold effortlessly, not because it was easy, but because God had ordained it. So keep showing up, keep believing, keep sowing in faith, keep building in silence, because suddenly is coming. And when it does, you'll understand why the wait was so long. You'll understand why the process was necessary. And you'll see that the God who seemed silent was never still. He was preparing a moment that would change everything. When God moves, He moves suddenly. And when He does, it will be more than you imagined, more than you asked for, and more than you thought was even possible. Your tears will become testimonies. That's a promise wrapped in hope, one that seems distant when you're in the thick of sorrow, yet one that speaks deeply to the heart of God's redemptive power. You see, pain is not the end of your story. Confusion is not your final chapter. Sorrow does not get the last word. Everything you've endured, every sleepless night, every silent prayer, every whispered why has been seen by God, and none of it has been wasted. Though it may have broken you for a season, though it may have brought you to your knees, it will not be in vain. God is the only one who can take tears and turn them into something beautiful. He doesn't just comfort you, He transforms your pain into purpose. There are seasons in life where we are tempted to believe that nothing good could possibly come from what we're going through. Seasons of heartbreak, betrayal, loss, disappointment, where the weight of it all feels unbearable. You question where God is in the middle of it. You wonder if He even sees you, but He does. And not only does He see you, He's walking with you right there in the fire, right there in the valley. He's present, quiet maybe, but not distant. Sometimes God allows us to go through things not because He wants to break us, but because He wants to bring something through us. He knows that someone down the line will need your story. Someone will need the wisdom that came from your wounds. Someone will find healing in your honesty. And so He allows the tears to fall, knowing that one day those tears will water the soil of someone else's breakthrough. We tend to see tears as a sign of weakness, but in God's economy, they are seeds, seeds of growth, of transformation, of future glory. Scripture says that those who sow in tears will reap with songs of joy. That's not just poetic language, it's a divine promise. It means that every tear you've shed is an investment into your future healing. It means that we serve a God who counts your tears and stores them because they matter. And when the time is right, those very tears will bloom into a harvest of joy. You'll look back and see that what once broke you actually built you. What once crushed your spirit actually deepened your faith. And you will be able to speak with authority, not because you learned something in a book, but because you lived it, you endured it, you survived it. And now you carry a testimony that no one can deny. There's a unique kind of power in the story of someone who has been through fire and still worships. Someone who has walked through pain and still smiles, not because they are pretending, but because God met them in the middle of the pain and changed everything. Your story doesn't lose its power just because it's filled with pain. In fact, it gains power when you allow God to redeem it. When you stop hiding the hurt and start sharing the healing, when you allow others to see where you came from, they begin to believe that they can come out too. That's the beauty of testimony. It multiplies faith. It builds bridges between broken hearts. It invites others to meet the same God who met you in your darkest hour. So don't be ashamed of your tears. Don't be afraid of your story. Don't silence your testimony just because it came from a hard place. What the enemy meant for evil, God will turn for good. He will take your story, the raw, unfiltered, painful parts, and use it to shine light into someone else's darkness. Your healing will give them hope. Your survival will give them strength. And your tears will no longer be a symbol of what you lost, but of what God restored. There will come a day when you will cry again, but not because of sorrow. You will cry because of how faithful God was, even when you didn't see it. You'll cry because the very thing that made you question Him will now be the thing that reveals His goodness. You'll cry because you'll finally understand why the road was so hard, why the nights were so long, why the burden was so heavy. And in that moment, you'll see that it was leading you here, not to defeat, but to destiny, not to bitterness, but to blessing, not to despair, but to purpose. And when you stand in the middle of that testimony, people will listen, not just because of your words, but because of the weight behind them. They'll see the joy in your eyes and the strength in your voice, and they'll know that only God could have brought you through. That's what testimonies do. They point back to God. They give Him the glory. They declare His faithfulness, and they give others the courage to hold on just a little longer. So if you're in a season of tears right now, don't give up. Don't lose hope. God is not finished. Your tears are not the end. They are the beginning of something beautiful. He is turning them into testimonies that will inspire, encourage, and bring life. You will smile again. You will laugh again. And when you do, it will be deeper, fuller, richer, because you'll know what it cost. And you'll know who carried you through it all. What's coming is tailor-made for you. That means it won't look like anyone else's breakthrough, blessing, or miracle because it wasn't meant to. God isn't in the business of giving out one-size-fits-all answers. He sees you in all your complexity, your personality, your past, your dreams, your pain, and He designs what's coming with all of that in mind. What He has planned for your life is so specific, so intentional, that when it finally arrives, you won't have to wonder whether it's for you. It will fit your life, your needs, and your calling so perfectly that your heart will recognize it instantly as the fulfillment of everything you've been waiting for. That's the beauty of how God works. He's not just preparing a blessing, He's preparing you for that blessing. In every season of waiting, stretching, growing, and even breaking, He is shaping your heart to align with what He is getting ready to release into your life. He's doing this because when it comes, he doesn't want it to overwhelm you. He doesn't want it to confuse you. He wants it to settle into your life with peace, clarity, and a deep sense of, this is what I was made for. Sometimes the reason it takes so long is because what you're waiting on has layers of purpose that are not yet visible. If you were to receive it too early, you might misunderstand it or mishandle it. But when it arrives at the appointed time, you'll realize it didn't just meet your needs, it answered your prayers in ways you didn't even have words for. Because God is not just responding to your requests, He's responding to the cries of your heart, the dreams you tucked away, the parts of you that only He knows intimately. He knows exactly what will bring peace to your restless spirit and purpose to your path. When God brings something tailor-made, it carries more than just surface-level satisfaction. It brings lasting joy, a deep sense of belonging, and an unmistakable awareness that God has been listening the whole time. The doors He opens will not require you to shrink, compromise, or pretend to be someone else. You won't have to force it to work. You won't have to beg for it to stay. What's for you will recognize you, and you'll recognize it. Think about a piece of clothing that's been custom fitted. It doesn't just kind of fit. It feels like it was made for your body alone. That's the difference between what we try to fit ourselves into and what God brings to us. We often chase things that look good on others, thinking they'll satisfy us too. But what fits someone else's life may not fit yours, because your calling, your timeline, your story is completely different. That's why comparison is so dangerous. You might be looking at someone else's blessing and wondering why it hasn't happened for you, not realizing that what God has for you is being crafted in a way that has nothing to do with theirs. Your process is different because your purpose is different. Sometimes it feels like you're being left behind when you see others stepping into their moment while you're still waiting. But don't let that discourage you. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it's not coming. What's tailor-made takes more time. It requires precision. It's not rushed. And while others may receive their blessing sooner, yours is being crafted in a way that will be undeniable when it arrives. You'll look back and realize that God wasn't making you wait to punish you. He was making you wait because He was being careful with your future. There's also something powerful about knowing that God didn't forget the details. He knows the hidden struggles you've battled, the private prayers you've whispered through tears, the hopes you were afraid to speak aloud. And when He finally delivers what He has promised, you'll see that He remembered all of it. He didn't just give you what you asked for. He gave you what you needed, what you couldn't even express, what your soul longed for in silence. That's how intentional He is. And when you receive it, it won't just bless you. It will confirm everything God spoke to you in the dark. It will validate the waiting. It will affirm your obedience. It will prove that He was always working, always listening, always weaving everything together behind the scenes. You'll be able to stand in awe, not just of what you've received, but of the God who knew you so intimately that He tailored something just for you. There will be no need to compete, compare, or question. You'll walk into rooms and opportunities and relationships and know deep in your spirit that you were made for this, and this was made for you. And that kind of peace doesn't come from chasing blessings. It comes from trusting the one who writes your story. So if you're still waiting, don't grow weary. What God is preparing is not being delayed. It's being detailed. It's being crafted with the care of a loving Father who knows you better than you know yourself. It's not going to look like what anyone else has. And when it comes, it won't just change your life. It will complete the part of you that's been quietly waiting to feel seen, known, and fulfilled. What's coming is tailor-made. And when it arrives, you'll know. You'll recognize God's fingerprints all over it. And your only response will be gratitude, because it will be more than good. It will be perfect. God's timing will reveal His glory. It's not always easy to hold on to that truth when the days are long and the answers are slow to come. In seasons of waiting, it can feel like God is distant, like maybe He forgot about you or changed His mind. But the truth is, God is never late. He is never early. He is always on time. And when the right time comes, His answer won't just meet your needs. It will reflect His majesty, His goodness, and His power in such a way that no one else can take the credit. Not you, not your connections, not your effort, not your timing, only Him. That's the thing about divine timing. It removes all doubt about where the blessing came from. It humbles you and lifts Him high. It makes sure that when the breakthrough happens, your heart won't be puffed up with pride. Instead, it will bow down in worship, overcome with the realization that God alone did it. That's why the wait is so important. It strips you of self-dependence. It empties you of your own ability so that when God shows up, there's no confusion. You know it was Him, you feel it was Him, and the only proper response is awe and surrender. God isn't just working for your benefit, He's working for His glory. Every delay, every not yet, every closed door is ultimately part of a greater picture where His name is exalted and His love is displayed through your life. When He moves, it will not only bless you, but also become a testimony to others of who He is. That's why some doors stay closed longer than you expect. That's why some prayers seem to hang in silence, because God is waiting until the moment when the impact will be greatest, when your heart is most aligned, and when the result will point unmistakably back to Him. When the Israelites stood in front of the Red Sea with Pharaoh's army behind them, it looked like the worst kind of delay, trapped, stuck, and out of options. But God had orchestrated that exact moment. Why? Because when He parted the sea and they walked across on dry ground, everyone from the Israelites to the Egyptians knew that it was a move only God could make. It wasn't strategy. It wasn't luck. It was divine intervention. His timing revealed His glory. In your life, there are situations that seem stagnant right now, doors that won't open, prayers that haven't been answered, desires that seem to be sitting on hold. You may be tempted to wonder if you missed your moment or if God has forgotten about you. But what if the timing is not a punishment but a setup? What if God is setting the stage for a display of His power that will silence every doubt, calm every fear, and remind every watching eye that He is still in control? His glory is not just revealed in the outcome, it's revealed in the way He brings it about, how He turns your pain into peace, how He makes provision in the most unlikely places, how He restores what you thought was beyond repair. When the promise comes to pass, it will be clear that this wasn't your doing. You didn't network your way into it. You didn't push or force it. You trusted, you waited, and God moved. And when He does, it will move you to tears. Not tears of desperation like before, but tears of reverence, tears of worship, tears that come from seeing the fingerprints of a faithful God all over your story. You remember the nights you almost gave up, the moments you questioned everything, the prayers you thought were lost in heaven's silence. And then you'll see how God was weaving everything together, how He was never absent, how His love was working even in the waiting. That's the kind of moment that changes you forever. It's not just about receiving the blessing, it's about encountering the one who gives it. It's about being so deeply aware of God's presence, His faithfulness, His love, that your heart responds not with entitlement, but with worship. You'll know that you didn't earn it. You didn't deserve it, but God in His mercy gave it anyway. And that will bring you to your knees, not out of sorrow, but out of overwhelming gratitude. This is the glory of God's timing. It is never rushed, never careless, and never wasted. Every second of waiting is filled with purpose. And when the appointed time comes, it will be so evident, so divine, that it could only have come from His hand. It won't just be the right answer, it will be the right revelation. You'll see His power, you'll feel His love, you'll witness His sovereignty unfold before your eyes. So if you're in a season of waiting, take heart. The silence is not the end. The delay is not the denial, it's preparation, it's alignment. It's God waiting for the perfect moment to reveal his glory through your life. And when it comes, you won't have to strive, chase, or question. You'll simply lift your hands in worship with tears streaming down your face and say, only God could have done this. That's the moment you were made for. And it's coming.